We've been at odds with Silicon Valley on and off since our inception, 20 years ago, where we were essentially patriotic, and that was optional in Silicon Valley and kind of viewed skeptically. Being pro, America winning was kind of like, kind of like being into origami in high school. It's like you didn't get any dates. People kind of felt sorry for you kind of vibe. And it's like, and you're like, but my swan is so beautiful. Why doesn't anyone love me or even like me? Why? And, interestingly now we're largely aligned, certainly in private. This is in private become the one place in America that is really disproportionately showing the world that we can do things that really don't exist in the Western world, like the way in which we scale tech, build things creatively. And it's actually a place where people still believe in basic controversial concepts like meritocracy, agency. Like, we actually believe that you can start off with something that looks crazy, and if you fight really hard and you surround yourself with highly annoying but the most competent people, and that's often correlated. It's not causation, but you could, if you were building Palantir, you could think it's causation. It's somewhere between causation and correlation, depending on how much sleep you've had. And we, literally do not care here where you were born, where you came from, what your parents did. We just don't care. And I spent half my life in Europe and in Germany, a tremendous intellectual culture. But yeah, you will more likely end up where you were born when you're 50 or 60 than any other variable. And that's just not the case in Silicon Valley. What I think where we're very aligned then, though, became very aligned with our partners was, and I really underestimated this choice, by simply saying, we're going to build the product that's going to make this government agency superior. And by the way, then, it's like all these conspiracy things online that like they got us. And it's like, it was actually the opposite. We fought the government. There were two big things that led to where we got here. One, we're going to build the thing the government ought to build, which is data protection while finding the bad person. And that the alpha, it's very similar to alpha in a business is margin and growth. It's not one. Alpha in government is not finding bad person. It's finding bad person while enhancing civil liberties, or at the very least making sure those civil liberties are harder to eviscerate. That's the alpha. But then the underlying proposition was, we are going to build the whole company around what creates the most value. Now, it was partly in great part because we believed in it. It was also because we, and especially I, had the sense, no one's going to buy this product from us unless it's 10 times better, because they are not looking at me and saying, you look like me and I'm going to buy that product. And if you build downstream from value creation, you end up with forward deployed engineers, echoes, deltas, devs, very few trained people. And the reason you end up with forward deployed engineers, especially in the beginning, is you have to extend the product. And the product we built in the beginning was essentially, how do you enhance data protection and find terrorists in a context where you don't have LLMs? And so you have to use very primitive NLP technology. And the answer to that is you build this incredibly difficult to build product with a team of the best engineers I think anyone's seen in Silicon Valley in decades. But then even that didn't work, so we had to have people on the front end who are essentially engineers extending the product to a place where the product couldn't go. And why did we do that? I mean, again, those of you who are, over 40 know the punishment of doing that meant that every single financially trained person was on the other side of the business, because what did everyone know as a fact? If you're doing quote unquote services, you have a 1 multiple. Nobody wants to invest in a business that has a 1 multiple. So you are screwed. And in fact, the fact that everyone thought it was a cult, we kind of were, was what saved the company, because we were so in our cult. We were like, multiples. We're not interested in that. We're not going public. So, but if you then fast forward to now, what is driving our business in the US? And it's like, yeah, of course we have the best partners. You're the best partners. What defines a best partner? A partner is somebody who wants to create maximum value in their business, meaning revenue and margin shift, and everything that is kind of downstream of that. Safety goes up, happiness goes up of employees. Workers, one of the things I do think Silicon Valley is totally effed up. It's like in overhyping the value of LLMs by not listening to our treatises of truth that an LLM is a raw material that has to be processed, and the processing of the LLM will change America and change the world. By overhyping the LLM and saying you're going to have AGI tomorrow, when of course that wasn't what was going to happen, you had to go adversarial to workers, because you had to say, well, of course you're going to disappear tomorrow because our LLM doesn't work the way it should today and is very valuable, but it's not without an ontology architecture around it to make it predictive, a very unseemingly powerful tool that's built on statistics, more precise. You had to say the less precise thing is going to be fully valued tomorrow. And so instead of doing what it should have done, which is you can actually transform your business by being open to different ways of doing business. And what would that mean? It would mean anywhere where human ingenuity can be enhanced, whether that's the worker, whether it's the person running something, where the person who's in charge of a part of their business can take large language models, use them inside their enterprise. And what does that mean? It means extending the human mind. It means being able to use the large language model to change margins, to increase safety, to increase revenue. And how do you do that? Well, of course, the model has to interact with an understanding of your business as it is. What is your business? It is a concatenation of your insights, your knowledge of how to run the business, your competitive advantage, which is essentially tribal. I know how to do this in a different way than anyone else. The high fidelity data sets in your business, and your ability to orchestrate the large language models outside of your business while being inside an abstraction of your business. You would need something like Ontology and Foundry. Maybe you could get it from someone else. And you would need forward deployed engineers on our side to teach your people how to be forward deployed engineers, because there's a way in which you still have to extend the product. So it is extending your uniqueness. It is not making you a commodity. And by the way, this is where we're aligned against what most people view as a business, because we want a non-commodified business. We want a business that is completely differentiated than anyone else's, so that people struggle to compete to the point where they just have to complain about you on TV, which is what happens to us every day. Everyone's complaining about, it's like, it's like, that's what you want for your business. And that's exactly what you can get by taking essentially this very, very important raw material and using it in a processed form in your business. And I think this is why we're so happy with you. And I hope you're as happy with us as we are with you, and why, we can, and I think, basically transfer over time our financials to your financials, because we're doing exactly the same thing. And then what I personally love about this is it gives a massively unfair advantage largely to businesses in this country. Why? Because if you compare corporate culture in America to any other country, you have highly dynamic, meritocratic structures that are plastic in the sense that people will move and change to what works, not what worked yesterday. It is like Germany is an incredible culture, but the way in which the corporate structure works is the whole corporate structure is in charge for like 30 years. Like, it is nearly impossible to change how you do things. In America, we're like, what the hell? We're just going to do what works. And then you have essentially this is a native capacity. It's in America. And that also is a huge differentiator, because de facto, it's very hard to accept a new way of doing things if the person explaining it is not rooted deeply into your culture. And so this just completely hypercharges industry. Now, it also hypercharges government, which is why we're doing very well in government, although it's worthy of note whenever people are like, Palantir's doing too well in government. I was like, yeah, we are doing very well, but it's 40 points less than how we're doing in commercial. But any case, what makes me really look forward to these conferences, and every time even more, is we are fully aligned with making sure your world looks closer to our world, which is you're able to radically increase growth, radically decrease margins, and increase the happiness of the people in your business at all levels of business, including workers. And that is actually the real promise of the AI revolution. And, and I'm really happy you're here. And then the other, it's just like, it's incredible to have, it's easy for, like in the end of the day, people are going to think, well, yeah, he's in charge of the company. He's a large owner. Of course he says that. Well, again, that's why we have people here. It's like one of the things we learned when we built PG in the beginning was we could run around telling governments it's the best product, or we could put people in the room and you could talk about your experiences, good, bad, ugly. And then what you're doing here is you are actually a change agent function, because in fact, you got on the boat. And the reason why I'm grateful to you, you got on the boat before anyone else. And now everybody's like, I have a bot in my company. That's not really working. I have a piece of software in my company that was basically, I don't know, like every single company we look at, there's like, I don't know, at scale, there's like $1 billion of like duplicative software that is just a Frankenstein monster lurking in your company, preventing you from doing what you want. What is it you want to know? I want to know the cost of goods. I want to know how I'm going to increase. How am I going to be more efficient? How do I deal with a situation where there's macroeconomic disruption? Like, and the thing that's impeding you from that is the software that is lurking in your system that you somehow can't take out. And we're going to partner with you to do that. And you're going to partner with us to make your company great, and occasionally tell other people that we helped you and that we're not the freak show that people think, or we are. My favorite compliments in government were like, honestly, from the special forces. They're like, man, you guys look really freaky. And in the beginning, I didn't like you. But when you helped save my buddy's life, I really learned to like you. And another lesson in Silicon Valley is we are able to learn to like people and partner with people that in the beginning were not exactly our cup of tea. And we do this as a culture. It's one of the most underestimated parts of our culture. American culture learns to like what works. And that's a very rare quality. It's very different than like other interesting, great places in the world. We really do learn to like and value what is working. Not what worked in the past, not what could work, not what they say at Berkeley philosophy department is going to work, not what some crazy person on the right or left aspires to believe could work in a society that wasn't differentiated, that didn't have technology, that didn't have finance, and didn't have any enemies. Yeah, lots of things work under those conditions, including, the faculty lounge at Berkeley. But in this world, Americans learn to like and love things that actually do work and give disruptive value. And that's essentially what we're claiming to do with you as partners. So very happy to have you here. Delighted. And I hope you have a great time. Take care. Bye.